It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Atiku-Obi. It's been a very eventful week across the nation, and I know a lot of you have a lot of thoughts about how the week that was has panned out, whether it's with the politics or the economy or your personal lives. But while you're waiting for that, football fans I know are at the edge of their seats, especially if you're an Arsenal fan, waiting to see what happens with the English Premier League. But before we get to that, we're going to get some insights into the week that was, news that made the front page across the nation during the week. To try and dissect, where we're headed, we're going to be starting, of course, with politics. And I'm joined here in the studio by Emeka Nanyi, who is a legal practitioner. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, thanks to you too.
Yes, I want to start with, I think an image that's caused a stir during the week and has got even the presidency reacting. We saw the former vice president and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku-Abubakar, post a picture saying that he did receive the former governor of Anambra State and Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi in his office, and didn't say too much after that, but it became such a stir about what's to come. What did you think of that image? Because these are friends. Even before politics happened, they ran on the same ticket in 2019. We're seeing them sort of having a conversation for the first time, and all these permutations have already started. Do you think that's a sign of what's to come in the next elections, maybe?
I think so, because these are people, like as you said, they are friends. And when you take a look at the closeness between Atiku-Abubakar and Peter Obi, so you see personalities that are not new into politics. And in politics, you never say never. And to me, I basically see it from the part of Atiku-Abubakar as a big stakeholder trying to collaborate with others. And Peter Obi has the courage. So if you put those forces together, there's a tendency that, okay, you have a better outcome. So it is more or less like, to the mind of the electorate, they are wondering, they are speculating, what could this be? But is it possible? Yes. Never say never in politics.
Yeah.
So I believe definitely that, let me not use the word definitely, it's a possibility. And if it happens, Nigerians are asking the question, how is it going to benefit us? So it is a matter of the utilitarian value of the alliance that matters a lot.
But there's a lot of people who believe that this is coming 2 or 3 years too late, Whether you support the present government or not, whether you support either of the two candidates, there was also always a belief that, for the party at the time, the APC, to get a strong contender, the opposition had to unite. There was all that conversation about,
Yes.
there was Kwankwanso on one end, Peter Obi on one end, Atiku-Abubakar on the other, all running against the party in power, and it was never going to work. Do you think this could have made a difference at the time? And is it too late now because of sort of the distrust among supporters of both of these candidates now?
Yeah, I believe it's not too late. I believe it's not too late. Never say never. And I agree that it could have made a difference if it happened prior to the election, because you saw the votes that Peter Obi garnered, you saw the vote that Atiku garnered. So imagine if you brought these two forces together and harmonized it. So it would have been a more strong contention between APC and the Alliance Party, if there was such, if it happened. So I believe that it is never too late to do the proper thing. And if the coming together of two or more political parties would bring a better result for the electorate, definitely it's a possibility and it's a welcome development. And I agree that for the electorate, the picture, sends a signal to say, okay, what is happening? And if it's going to happen, how is it going to benefit us? So that's the question that we don't care about party. We don't care about party. We are more interested as what's going to be the results for with the electorate. So that's basically how, the electorates are not politicians, stricto sensu. What they want is, the dividends of democracy. And whichever party that gives them that is what they are going to go for.
I think we'll have some guests in our Abuja studio. If we're going to cross over there now and have a conversation with Achike and Chibuzo Okereke. While we wait for that, I think we don't have them yet. We'll get to that. But the presidency has reacted and basically dismissed whatever this image or alliance is or could be, because according to them, I mean, they are not bothered about the planned alliance. They said the president was not even losing sleep over this. Fair enough. I mean, it's just 1 year into this administration. There's still a long time away before we start talking politics again on the federal level. Do you think the presidency is playing it down? Is it something they should keep an eye on?
I think it's something they should keep an eye on because, uh, if you take example of the Labour Party movement, so it's something that the big political party just say, no, this thing is not going to fly. It's just a small party. It doesn't have structure and everything. But you know what happened, that you saw the outcome of the election. So to me, for the presidency, I think they're just trying to play it down. I don't think that's the proper approach to go. This alliance, if it happens, you are going to have a more formidable opposition that will play that supervisory role over APC in terms of, checking out the checks and balances and everything to ensure, give them that contention for which APC deserve in order to push them, to nudge them to do better. So to me, I expect the presidency to be a little bit more concerned in the positive aspect, not to be worried in the negative aspect, because you are looking at a situation whereby if you are talking about the politics of numbers, you take a look at PDP, you take a look at APC. I'm just using the parties because most likely it might not be the parties that are going to, it might be a new party that is going to emerge, whichever way that it happens. But if you have this strong content that come together to harmonize forces, then it's definitely going to be a great source of concern. And I think that the presidency should, consider it more and see the benefit of it, because the benefit of it is that, okay, you now have a strong opposition that will nudge you to deliver better policies, better governance, amongst every other thing. But if you just shove it aside, you might be in the euphoria that all is well. And when this tsunami happens, it's going to backfire on you. So I believe that they should, take a look at it critically and with a view to, arriving at a decision that would enable them checkmate this. Checkmate it not in the sense that, okay, you are going to fight them, you are going to say, okay, don't have this meeting, don't have this alliance. No, that is not what I mean. What I mean is that, okay, they should, be concerned, and concerned in the sense that, okay, in terms of policies, in terms of governance, in terms of every other thing that deals with the politics of governance in Nigeria, they have to tighten their belt, because we have a strong force that is likely to happen. It might not happen.
So, I mean, there are people who are going to say, well, this alliance or whatever it is very individual based, right? These are two people coming together. It has nothing to do with the parties that they represent. These are two friends, probably just hanging out. We don't even know exactly what is really happening. How does this play now, with regards to the platforms that they run on? And, is it something you think is going to reflect? Or have they, the people who voted them at the time, supported them at the time, do you think they still believe in this?
I think they do. And I think we're coming to an era, we're in an era where it's not a function of political party. So the electorate are more concerned as to who the candidates are, what are their pedigree, what are we going to get, what is the dividend of democracy that is going to emanate from this. So for their followers, especially speaking from the aspect of the youth are more concerned as to what are your portfolios, what's your profile, what are you going to do to make governance better, what are you going to do differently. So we are not tied to PDP, we are not tied to APC, we are not tied to Labour Party. So long as you are able to give us, if you have the vision, we are ready to follow you. So I don't have issue with the political parties, the followers of the political parties. I believe that once they see the person with the vision, they will be able to leave party aside and follow the vision.
Let's move on now from politics and talk power, because a lot has been happening in that sector. We woke up sometime about a month ago to these band A band things, and there's a belief that the Minister of Power keeps trying out things. Many find that the trials come from not proper testing the market before introducing these things. We also did hear last year, the president did assent the electricity bill, which authorized states, to generate their own power and all of that. Now we hear the minister has announced the suspension of regulatory autonomy of the electricity markets to state governments. A reversal less than a year after this announcement was made, saying that states can generate their own power. We saw all the noise that came with Abia State, for example. This probably means that that can't happen anymore. Everything goes back to the national grid. It feels like a step back. Do you think that's a way to go? We've tried this for a long time. I mean, your thoughts on the Minister of Power and how things have turned out in the last year?
Yeah, to me, it's a source of concern to a bystander because you have policies, because part of governance and business from the business aspect of it is policy consistency. So if as a minister you allow this to happen and subsequently you come to say, okay, you know what, we are suspending this for now. So although we are not automatically eradicating it, we are just placing it on hold. The question to me as a business person is, will I place my business on hold? I intend to invest in this sector. So the electricity is part of an item under item 14, 13, and 14 of the second schedule of the Constitution, part 2. Both the state and the federal could legislate on it. So, in respect of this suspension, the issue there is the inconsistency. Have you not tested this before? Have you not thought about it before? We are talking about something that has national significance, something as powerful as electricity. So you cannot just wake up one day to say, I don't think the state they are ready. I don't think they have the technical know-how to operate this. I don't think they have the technology. You ought to have thought about this. You ought to have considered this point before coming up to say, okay, you know what, we'll give you the regulatory oversight over this to the state. So it's a source of concern to the business people, to the ordinary users, and to even generally to the world, because you have to be consistent in your policies because people want a predictable environment. Although it has an advantage. The advantage is that, okay, we want to go back to review what we had thought we could have done better. Let's review it, come up with a better plan, and, you know, bring out a better outcome or policies, as it were. But the other aspect, the negative aspect, is that people are worried. You are bringing inconsistent policies, and you can't do this for a business, not to talk of when you are dealing with issue of national significance. So it's on both sides. Better performance, a possibility of better performance, yeah. On the other aspect, people are scared. People are skeptical to say that, okay, you ought to have known better as a minister. So that's where I say it from that aspect.
So just to play devil's advocate here, because we've said that, you know, Mr. President made a lot of pronouncements when he came into power, and we saw how the markets reacted to a lot of them, whether it's removal of subsidy, you know, and you know the adjustments that have followed after that, whether it's the naira, you know, so they are tweaking things as they go along. Now, Mr. President did sign this into law. I mean, it was a bill that was passed before he came into power, and the minister did say that, you know, this was reversed because they needed to understand properly the transfer of regulatory oversight of the electricity market to states. The electricity grid is very complex, right? And, you know, transferring some of these things, I want to believe, are not things that can just be done by signature. Also, whether we like it or not, we have a few states governors or governments that probably are not as competent as they should be with handling some of these things. Do you see where he might have been coming from with this reversal?
You know, to some extent I do, but another extent I disagree, because you have people who have acted based on these policies. You have people like, okay, we haven't seen what is going on in Abia State, but at least you could see the euphoria in respect of Abia State. So just imagine that, okay, it has to do, you have invested so much, and from these are capital intensive projects. So if you've taken facilities to actually finance this, and you have this suspension on this oversight and all that, then it's a source of concern. It's a source of concern because as far as the business people are concerned, we rely on your expertise. We rely on your expertise. You are a regulator. So you ought to have known far better before you came up with these policies. I have acted on these policies. So even though we are it's not an eradication, like as I said, it's a suspension, it's placing on hold temporary, but we don't know how far it's going to go. But whatever it's going to be, we expect that it's going to be for the better, in terms of, okay, they're going to come up with more elaborate policies, they're going to bring out more framework and for ease. That's just what I believe.
Okay. I'll come back to you now, but let's go quickly to our Abuja studios. I think we're joined now by Atiku-Obi, and Chibuzo Okereke. Thanks for joining us. If you can hear me, let me start with you, Chibuzo, because we were talking earlier about this picture that's caused a stir during the week between former Vice President Atiku-Abubakar and former Governor of Anambra State Peter-Obi, and all the drama about what this means for the coming uh, election season or whatever you want to call it with regards to that alliance. And I think the question I want to put to you is, considering the divisions that we saw with supporters of both of these candidates and how deep it has gotten, is this still a feasible thing? Do you see a situation where supporters, yes, politicians are politicians, they can get back together, they were friends anyways, but have the supporters of these candidates been so polarized that this is no longer feasible?
Well, first of all, this is my first time on your show, Ebuka, and I must commend the good work you're doing at the Rubbin Minds platform. In terms of Nigerian politics and former Governor Peter-Obi and former Vice President coming together, well, I think that in politics there are a lot of intrigues, and following the outcome of the 2023 general elections, maybe the leaders are beginning to reflect on some of the steps they could have taken, which they didn't do at the time, and they felt maybe it was time to forge an alliance, probably learning from the president what he also did and how they were able to overcome the ruling party at a time. Well, in political leadership, what is important is for these leaders to agree this is the direction they want to go as people, and then they'll be able to rally their supporters around that. But as somebody who is very much conversant with the political terrain in Nigeria, and listening to the former vice president saying, oh, I may be able to step down for P2B in the next election and all that. What I can say is that even Mr. P2B himself has to be very careful, because you are dealing with archival politicians who have been in the system since 1992. They understand election period and times and seasons. So 2027 is not a transition election like we had in 2023. And every wise politician at that level needs to understand political cycles and what each cycle represents and the kind of momentum each cycle can bring to particularly national politics, because a lot of things will be at play. Yeah. So if you look at the Southerner is a president now. So by a political arrangement, we expect that if he's able to do 8 years, the power will go back to the north. But if then somebody from the south that is not the current president is fighting to take over power, you have difficulty dealing with people from the north supporting you, especially when they know if you go in, you'll be fighting for another area. So there are a lot of intrigue, there are a lot of dynamics you have to consider as an individual when somebody is promising you, oh, finally, I'm ready to step down for you. Now you have to look at that election cycle. So I think it's a possibility because compromise and consensus building is critical for leaders to be able to forge a common front, at least to provide robust opposition to the current government and get them on their toes to deliver on good governance. Yeah.
Okay, let me come to you now, Chike Chude, because I want to find out, are we reading too much into this thing, even? Because all we saw was a picture. Yes, the former vice president did grant an interview, I think, on BBC House, and just insinuated that if he came to that, and he said, I think, if his party zoned the presidency to the southeast, of course he would support the former governor of Anambra State. But nothing is cast in stone. And like I've said through the show, these are friends, these are political allies. They ran together on the same ticket in 2019. So a visit doesn't mean anything. Are we reading too much into this?
In a way, I think we are. But of course, you know that there have been a lot of discussions, even post-election, that perhaps if there had been an alliance before that particular election, there would have been a completely different outcome. That an outcome that would not see the APC in power today. So these things are there, but just like you said again, they have a good relationship with one another. Peter Obi has run, for the president, as vice president, I think under Atiku-Abubakar. So they have built a political relationship. And if you also look, consider the last election, the attacks were never really between themselves or between their supporters against one another because of that mutual respect they had for each other. It was, of course, targeted at the APC party, and so we again will not dismiss it. We will not say that nothing will come out of it, because again there are different permutations. I agree with Okereke's also caution that anything can happen because politicians are very strange creatures. Anything can give at the end of the day. There could be renewed interest or new interests all of a sudden, and then when people you have already committed yourself on the basis of a promise that was made to you, and then you are off your guard, anything can happen, and you can have the rug swept under your feet. And so it is something for Peter Obi to also take with a pinch of salt. But also don't look at it. Of course, Atiku has provided a caveat from what you said. If the party zones the position to the southeast, and then what would now be the basis of that? Does that mean that Peter Obi will now leave the platform that he has currently, or the platform that he might have, in the build-up to 2027 election, and then embrace that of the PDP? Don't also forget the fact that PDP is not what it used to be, in the past. PDP is a very divided and fractured political party right now that is still trying to, get its bearing right. And so it's not, it does not have the same kind of strength that it had. And so if it does not have the kind of strength that it had in the past, then the possibility, the kind of, if what they will bring to bear in terms of what they are going to put on the table would not be as enticing as it was at a particular point in time. And so, but again, you are looking at an APC government presidential election where the president scored about 36% of the vote, and Atiku-Abubakar scored 29% of the vote, and Peter Obi 25%. And so what it means, again, in an election where the same kind of leanings, the same kind of support by the people for both PDP and APC, for instance, and for PDP and then the Labour Party will hold, it tells you that the APC is really going to be in trouble. But obviously, it is going to be dependent on a lot of other things, other factors. How has the APC been able to perform while in power for the past 4 years? That is when it gets close to, or the past 3 years, when it gets close to 2027, would also, be a factor in the minds of the people when they go out to also vote. So these are some of the things. So there are so many things that could happen before we get to 2027.
Yeah, 2027 is still, of course, a long time away, but we have a current president who's sitting in power there, and in 10 days he will be celebrating his first year in office. And he did talk a lot during his campaigns about hitting the ground running, which we saw a bit of, on the day he was sworn in, with the speech he made and all the pronouncements and policy pronouncements he did make. It's a year now into this administration, and I know that in the run-up to the elections in 2023, three key points were paramount for Nigerians. It was the economy, it was security, and it was employment. How would you rate this administration in the year so far?
There's been a lot of movements. Let me just say this. There's been a lot of movements. But sometimes, there is this expression, movement without motion, or motion without movement. And so there, in terms of policy drives, in terms of trying to get a lot of things done, in terms of initiatives, I don't think the government has been short on that. The government has come up with all manners of initiatives to address the dire economic situation that we have had, especially after the government again provoked the present economic crisis through that unilateral removal of fuel subsidy and all other things that have also happened. The discussion about new electricity tariff for band A or band B, or whichever of the bands, and all that. So the country has been mad, or the people have been mad in all manners of socioeconomic contradictions. things are exceedingly very difficult. Inflation has run away completely. The debt profile of the country has increased astronomically, and the country is finding it very difficult to do certain basic things that they are supposed to do. And then, of course, you also have the issue of corruption. How far have we been able to deal with the issue of corruption? I'm not sure that we have made a spectacular, progress in that direction. But I think what you'll be looking at, because the essence of governance is the people. How has governance affected the people, positively or negatively, or somewhere in the middle? The Nigerian people are in an unprecedented situation of extreme difficulty. And so when you look at their lives, it's not pleasant at all. With the cost of basic, items, especially food, being something that the average Nigerian can absolutely not afford. So while the government is doing a lot of things in terms of policy and the rest, the outcome has not impacted positively in the lives of the people. It's as simple as that. So Nigerians are not happy, they are frustrated, they are angry, and they are in despair. So obviously the government still has a lot of things to do to begin to change the narrative. But right now, the story on ground is that whatever it is that the government is doing has not affected the people positively. And that should be something that the government should take away and know that they need to do much more to improve on the lives of the Nigerian people.
Chibuzo, I don't know. So I was going through, some of the campaign speech. I'm sorry, the inauguration speech. I beg your pardon, Mr. President, on May 29th, and something stood out to me. He did say, and I quote, "We shall consult and dialogue, but never dictate. We shall reach out to all, but never put down a single person for holding views contrary to our own." Basically, talking about the fact that his administration will be very open to dialogue and negotiations with Nigerians. Do you see this as a government that in the last year has shown, that they are, creating policies that reflect the mood of Nigerians? Do you see a president who's interacting with Nigerians and getting feedback based on, what he hears from Nigerians?
Okay, I think to make an objective assessment of this, we have to actually compare it with something. If you look at where we are coming from, in the last 8 years before the new government, where the former president believed that Nigerians shouldn't be talked to and that you can lead from anywhere, you could actually give a pass mark in terms of whether this president and his team has been forthright in communicating. But in terms of dialogue and engagement and all that, I think there have been a level of that, but also there have been a lot of policy decision. And I agree with my colleagues in terms of a lot of policies and initiatives that we have not seen the outcome. And for those of us who are in the terrain, we agree that, of course, impact takes a bit of time for you to begin to see, but the elements that can point to that impact, you can look at it. So I think that there should be better negotiation, consensus building. Incidentally, this is the first president to appoint SAs on community matters. Unfortunately, since the appointment of those people in position, as SA to the president on community development. We have never heard from any one of them. He appointed each person from each zone. And we have never, heard them. We would expect that this kind of appointment will enable better engagement with the local government system, with community leaders, community-based organizations, so that policies of government are able to be explained to the people and feedback taken from the people to the government to be able to rejig those policies. So you look at the student loan, that's what the National Assembly was heavily involved, because when the first bill was assented into law, there was a lot of outcry in terms of the threshold and the what people had to meet to be able to participate in benefiting in that. So, and the law has been repealed and now reenacted to reflect better what the outcries of people. Subsidy we saw how subsidy was announced. That kind of consensus building and engagement didn't happen, and people in appointment did also take time to go to the people and explain and engage them, and we have seen gaps in that. So yes, the president also have been forceful in the issue of policy coordination unit, establishing that office. Unfortunately, the office have not done any public assessment in the last 1 year. And they said they created an app and said that people can go there and see KPIs and rates. I, for one, didn't agree that that is the best way to drive that kind of office, because you need a situation where the KPIs are going to be out there, not just for the elite, but for ordinary people, in the state and local government. I also think there are gaps in terms of the management of palliatives during the subsidy issue, allowing it to be hijacked by state government and state governors and their allies was not the best approach. And that is why till today, people cannot see the impact of those palliatives as a result of the subsidy removal. Transportation costs have remained high, and nothing has significantly changed in terms of how the welfare of the people. So, but in terms of policy, for instance, the policy on a reduction of number of people that follows ministers and the president to travel and all that. These are things that the implementation of it needs to be, understood by people. So, by and large, on one hand, I agree, a lot of policies, a lot of initiatives, but implementation is not properly democratized, and people are not being consulted in terms of multi-stakeholder level consultation. But in terms of effective communication from the president himself and his team, they are speaking out on the policies of the president. Yeah.
Okay, let me get a final word now from the studio here with Emeka Nanye. I mean, we've heard all of they've had to say. I think the consensus being that 1 year, a lot of movement, but not a lot of impact. If you were to pick one thing you want to see differently in the next year of Mr. President, what would it be?
So,
as quickly as you can, please.
Yeah, to me, I feel that for what I want the president to focus on is wide consultation. Wide consultation and redeemed planning. So policy consistency is what I'm more concerned, because the president continued to hammer on, we want investors, we're trying to win investors, we're trying to win investors. But win investors is actually not compatible with, policy inconsistency. So to me, I want the government, the federal government, to actually, have a consistent policy making and stick to it. This will enable investors coming, and this will also give assurances to existing businesses that, okay, we can continue to do business in Nigeria. Yeah. So that's the key area I want government to, participate in and take more time in, policy consistency.
Well, thank you very much, Emeka. Thank you very much, Atiku-Obi, and of course, Chibuzo Okereke. When we talk about Nigeria, there's never enough time to go through all of the things, but we're going to have to bring you back, maybe as we celebrate May 29th, and do a proper review of the administration's 1 year, and we'll talk a little more extensively then. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're going to take a quick break now, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now I have a special guest here in the studio. You probably have heard the name, but you might not know what she looks like. If you're a fashion enthusiast or a social media person, you probably have come across her page or her work at some point. In the last weekend at the African Magic Viewers Choice Awards, she did she did make quite the statements across board with multiple people she did work with. She's a fashion, she's a designer. Forbes 30 under 30 recipient on the continent. That says a lot about her achievements. And recently married. I'm joined here in the studio by Veekee James.
Thank you so much.
We have to talk about our marriage, of course, because the wedding, you left us in a chokehold for weeks.
It wasn't my intention.
Yes, it was. And it worked. Congratulations.
Thank you so
on that.
much.
A lot of us were watching things unfold, as you shared the journey. until, you know, the final ceremony.
Yeah.
What were you trying to, you know, I don't want to say achieve, but what was the purpose of that? Because there are people who do that, you know, to inspire, you know, to share their passion, to share their moments with the world. What was it for you, you know, doing that? Because you really let us in, and it was interesting.
Well, to be honest, it wasn't to achieve anything.
Yeah.
It was just to make myself and my husband happy. I tell everyone around me, this is my first and only wedding.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to make sure that I had my dream wedding. And obviously with my dresses, I wanted to make sure that I made them know that it's a Veekee James
You have
wedding.
to say your own market.
Exactly. So I've styled a lot of women over the years, and it was my turn to style myself. I needed to make that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just to make myself happy, basically, so that when I look at the videos and the pictures years after, I'll be happy that I made myself happy and I had my dream wedding.
Yeah. You did let us in, like I said, but a lot of people didn't know when this started. So I have to ask small. You know, how did you guys meet? You know, just share with us a bit of your love story.
Well, there's a lot of controversy around how we met because my husband used to be one of the managers for a friend of mine.
Okay.
And that was how we met. And a lot of blogs have had a lot to say about how we met, but I've never, ever come out to talk about it. And I think I want to keep it that way.
Okay. I mean, it's your choice.
Yeah.
As long as you guys are happy.
We're happy.
You guys did it
by
for
the
a
grace
while?
of God. Yeah. We did it for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think for almost 2 years, if not 2 years, yeah. Before, I mean, I think after a year and some months, we got engaged. And then we planned the wedding for over 6 months, and yeah.
It showed. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
But let's talk about the business now, because I can't remember the exact time you came into my consciousness. But I want to know when you started on this journey, what inspired you to do fashion? Because on the one hand, I mean, fashion is doing amazing things in Nigeria now.
Yeah, it is.
But those in the business would also tell you it's very brutal. You know, which is why you hear some name brands, 2-3 years down the line, they disappear.
Yeah.
You know, so going into this takes a lot of courage. When did you start and what made you go into it?
I started towards the end of 2018. So I would say that I've been in the business for 5 years and counting. And it wasn't easy, but I knew why I started, which was obviously to succeed at it and to be successful and to make a name for myself. And with that at the back of my mind, that really helped me to see it through until now. And like you said, there are a lot of fashion brands that started, and today we don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
And I put that at the back of my mind when I was working towards building a fashion brand, because I didn't want to be that type of brand.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a brand that would stand the test of time. I keep saying it that when I have kids, I want them to continue the business of the Veekee James fashion business. So yeah.
When did you decide what because you are known for your corsets? I think that's what I hear. Like, once the waist is not existent, it's a Veekee James dress. Did that evolve into that? Was there a moment when you started, creating your unique style, or what did you start as?
I think it has always been like that. Although that wasn't how I started. I didn't start with making just corsets or with focusing on the fact that I want my clients to always look a certain way. I think I took advantage of that when I realized that, people liked when they looked a certain way. And so I emphasized on that, and I focused more on making sure that the shape of my dresses look a certain way because of the responses that I got from the clients that I made dresses for when I started. When their dresses are really fitted, when it's really snatched, they're always excited. They always want to come back and say, they even made me know that I'm good with the fitting of the dress and how they wanted it to be. So yeah, I think that was when I started making sure that with every design I'm making, the waistline of the person is very important to me, the shape of the client is very important to me, and yeah, it became a thing for my brand.
Yeah. When was there a moment or a dress you think changed everything for you? And what was it? And when was that?
There were quite a lot of dresses at the same time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that it was just one dress. I know that I used to make dresses for quite a lot of girls and ladies that were doing really well on social media. But one person that still stands out to me would be Tomike Adeoye. When she got married, I made a wedding dress for her for a court wedding, and that dress really went viral. So I would say that that was the point where
People
I
started
became
taking
more
note.
like a fashion, more like a social media sensation. And yeah, that was the time where people knew that, oh, okay, she makes wedding dresses. She's so good at what she does. And I had a lot of clients from there. So yeah, that moment really still stands out for me.
Yeah. And so I mentioned the AMVC at the start of this, and you were laughing. I mean, I think for every best dress list I've seen, 3 or 4 of your outfits are on those lists,
By the grace of God.
which tells a lot about how much work you put into it. And that's what I want to ask now, because I saw a lot of these dresses, right? The one Toke Makinwa wore, the one Osasi Godaro wore. Those 2 in particular, it was so intricate and detailed. How long? What is the process and time? For like a dress like that, is it something? Because Nigerians will like our last minute. I have a wedding next weekend. I need a dress. How long does it take for this process to be complete?
Well, for Osasi's dress, I make Osasi's AMVCA dress every year, at least for 3 years now. I've been making her dresses for the AMVCA. So once, like now, I'm already thinking of what I'm making for her next year.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So after last year's AMVCA, I already knew that I wasn't going to make her anything with beads. So I already started thinking about what I wanted to do for her. And obviously, I did not start making the dress last year. I only started making that dress this year. And I changed quite a number of things with the design, because the final design that everyone got to see at the AMVCA wasn't what I envisioned from the beginning. So I would say that it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of of me thinking as a creative that, okay, let me do this, let me change this. And then the duration that it took to make the dresses, I would say weeks, because I'm a last minute creative. Sometimes I know, okay, I want to do this design, but if my spirit is not completely okay with it, I just tend to just wait until I'm clear on what I want to do. So yeah, I'll tell you it took weeks, but then it took months of me thinking of the designs. But production, it took weeks of working day and night.
Do you get worried about being boxed into this? I mean, it's a signature look, right? And people see that, that's a Veekee James dress, which is great. But on the other hand, do you get worried about, it becomes so monotonous that you think, is there a way to, spin these things? I mean, we are not there yet.
Yeah.
Because you see that with creatives generally. With actors, it happens. You get stereotyped with a role. With musicians, you want it to sound a certain way.
Yeah.
So I guess the same thing with designers as well. When it becomes
is.
your signature, and you're like, okay, am I stuck with this?
Yeah,
is this something you probably just think about sometimes?
It's honestly not a problem for me, because I know how to play around my designs. I think it is good for a creative to have something that's like your signature. And if that is my signature, then that's fine. That works for me, because I love it when people see my dresses on anyone and they don't have to be told that's my dress, that's my design. So I think it's actually so good for a creative to have that type of thing where people know your work when they see it. But I think what's also important is for one, as a creative, to know how to not be the type of person where you're not diverse with your designs. With all the dresses I made for the MVCA this year, I've seen hundreds of comments of people just saying, wow, they're all amazing and they stand out differently. Yeah, so I think it's just the intention behind like every of my design. We're very intentional about how every dress must look, even if they would end up having this Veekee signature. Yeah.
Something that you shared in the build-up to your wedding that got a lot of people surprised was you took us back to your roots in Ajegunle.
Yeah, I always do that.
And a lot of people were like, So this is where, now for some people, Ajegunle has always had that creative edge, right? Especially with music and sports. Footballers, musicians, they've had strong roots from Ajegunle. But I think for a lot of people, it's like a designer coming from there. Take us a bit back to that time, and if that has any bearing to what you're doing now.
Well, I would say that it does, because my mom is a tailor and she started in Ajegunle, where I grew up. I lived in Ajegunle for, let me say, over 20 years before I moved to the island. And life in Ajegunle really taught me a lot. And I allocate a lot of my achievements to my upbringing in Ajegunle. And I've seen a lot of people who grew up from Ajegunle make it and then try to pretend like they did not come from there.
Yeah.
So that's why every time I try to make noise about Ajegunle, because I intend to as well inspire the young people that are there to know that they can be whatever they want to be at the end of the day. So yeah.
Awesome. How often do you go back?
Very often. Very, very often. If you go on my Instagram, you would always see me somewhere in Ajegunle once in 3 months, once in 4 months. I always go back there for outreaches. I have a foundation to help young people as well, and also help even older people preach the gospel as well. I go there a lot of times. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to a topic now that's been very hot in the news in the last week. I want to get your insights on, because it's all everybody has been talking about. This tag, if I pay you, I don't tag. If I tag, I don't pay. I tagged you, I untagged you. I mean, it's a lot of drama. For those who don't know, now there's a Ghanaian actor who attended the AMVCA. Someone made a part of her dress, I believe, and wanted payments instead of being tagged. And then it became a whole thing of why she wasn't tagged and all of that. So tags on social media are a big thing, right? Because it's social currency.
Yeah.
And like you said, with the Tomike outfit, for example, it gave you some of what you have now. And I'm sure the other celebrities and people on social media that you've dressed. But at the same time, money is also important. So I guess looking at this whole drama from a designer's perspective, do you see the designer's point in saying, okay, I got paid fully, but I still deserved to be tagged in this whole scenario?
Well, the issue of tag has always been a thing, because I remember when I started fashion designing, I had a lot of celebrities come up to me and say, oh, if I pay you, I cannot tag you. But value has always been like a primary thing for me. And I feel like as creatives, you cannot completely pay for a creative's idea or work. It's not possible. It's just like telling a photographer that you have paid them for their work, or an artist that you've paid for their work. It's not something you can completely pay for. And with me, I'm a designer, but I've won, let me take myself for an example. I've won quite a number of designers. And I have never hesitated to tag them, whether I paid or not. And it's not only about designers. Everybody I patronize, and if they're watching this video, they can bear witness. No matter what I pay for something, unless maybe you treated me badly or you were just too rude to me, then maybe I might not be led to tag you. So for me, it has always been a thing of, what would I want someone else to do for me? If you buy from me and you pay me, I would be happy for you to tag me. So it has always been a thing of, do it for others so that they can do it for you. And I believe that God orchestrates things like that. I really don't know the story around the Nana and Ezinne, because that's her name.
Yeah.
I really don't know the story around it. But she was my student at my first fashion masterclass.
That's Ezinne.
That's the only time that I really met her in person and got to see her. If I understand what happened clearly, I think what happened was that Nana had an idea of what she wanted to wear for the AMVCA. They got the inspiration from a French designer, and then they created something different from what the designer made, even if they're similar. And she worked with a Ghanaian fashion designer who also came to my masterclass. So you see how happy that makes me. And then the designer in Ghana put together the design from the sketch to like how the dress should look. The designer spoke to the producers of the 3D patterns from China, and got the 3D patterns made and sent back to their country, or sent to Ghana, or sent to Nigeria. Nana reached out to Ezinne, from what I understand from the stories that I've seen, to make the bodice of the dress, which is like the corset and the innerwear. Which I think, if the innerwear wasn't made, there's no way that you would have gotten a dress, So Ezinne made the innerwear, and then they brought the rubber thing, the 3D thing, to Lagos, and Ezinne put it together on her. I put up a post on my Instagram advising young designers. I said, if a celebrity comes to you with the no money for tag thing, then run, because that was what I did. And that's how I have built value. Because there are lots of celebrities who came to me then who will pay anything to wear my dresses now? You know, and they respect my brand. And I think that's very important. I think Ezine was a bit too desperate for, you know, for the publicity. And that was why she rushed into making the dress without thinking, without asking the right questions. Who did this sketch? You know, where's the thing coming from? From the conversations that I have seen between her and Nana, I do not think that she asked the right questions. I do not think that she played the role of a designer in terms of, okay, this design is nice. Where does my creativity come in? You know, she did not do all of that. She did clearly the work that a tailor would do. And then I think also what the problem is miscommunication. Because if they had communicated to her that there's another designer involved in the process of this whole thing, she would have known that they would tag her alongside another designer. Because her problem was that she wanted to be tagged alone. Oh, okay. It's just like me making a dress for someone, and at the end of the day, I see you tagging me and tagging another designer in Nigeria or another designer in anywhere. Yeah. I'll be like, why are you tagging this person?
So questions were not asked.
Exactly. I believe that was the problem. So for me, you cannot completely pay a creative. It doesn't matter whether you paid them. Tag them if you feel led to. I think the Ezine girl was a bit dramatic about the whole thing because influencers and celebrities have come out to say that I don't owe you tag. Once I pay you, I have paid you. That's the mentality of a lot of celebrities, so I don't blame them. And when they came out to say that their colleagues that I know, a lot of them have experienced them. I've turned them down so many times because they came to me with that kind of, approach. Yeah. So a lot of them were under the comments saying, tell them, because it's what they would do. But it doesn't mean it's the right thing. I think that people should be tagged, whether they are paid or not, because we tag the high-end brands regardless.
Let's just end on a very quick note now, because I want to know what's next for the Veekee James brand. What's to come? You've had a great start to the year already. Yeah. Any plans for the rest of the year? Do you have a show planned? What's to come?
Well, I don't know if I have a show planned. The last time I was at Maya Tafo's office, you were there.
Yes.
He said to me, Veekee, it's time for you to do a grand fashion show. So it's in my plans, but I don't know if it's going to happen this year. And what's next for me is just making sure that my brand goes really far internationally. I believe that I have styled every celebrity I can think of here in Nigeria.
Market contact. On to the next one. You want to leave us and go. How much do your dresses cost on an average?
On an average, I think the starting price for my dresses would be 2.5 million naira, $2,500.
I'm in the wrong business.
So I have dresses worth times 10 of that. Yeah.
So that's about 20,000, actually.
Yeah. I have dresses worth 20,000.
20,000. You have things that go as high as that.
Exactly.
Congratulations on everything. I wish you all the best. Looking forward to Veekee James going global.
Thank you.
And congratulations once again on your wedding and your marriage. And I wish you all the best.
Amen.
And stay in that Forbes list.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much for joining us. Like I always say, you can follow the conversation on social media. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday.